Every Valorant player mechanic explained. If you know all these mechanics and use them in game, ranking up will be way easier for you. In this video, I'll go over 4 categories: positioning, movement, aiming, and peeking. And let's start with aiming. Arm aim. Aiming with your arm is a method where you mainly use your arm for aiming. Yep, that sentence made a lot of sense. But this method of aiming is usually done if you like to play with a lower sensitivity, because then you need to move your mouse a little more. Wrist aim. People that use wrist aim are using their wrist to aim. Usually done by players that like to play with a higher sensitivity, but I don't think one of the two methods is better. Flicks. I think everybody knows about flicks. It's when you see a target and you flick to the target to get a quick kill. Macro and micro aim. This is the part of flicks that a lot of people don't know about, but is very important. When you see a player making a flick, it often looks like one motion. And yes, some players do it in one motion, but a better way of flicking is with macro and micro aim. What you gotta do is first make a macro move towards the target, get your crosshair as close to the target as possible, and after that make a micro adjustment with your wrist to get your crosshair exactly on the target. Like you see in the background, if I do it in slow motion, you can see that this player is using a big flick first and after that makes a micro adjustment. Even though when you play it at full speed, it looks like one motion. Prediction shot. If you're holding an angle, there's a high chance that the enemy that will peek will do a wide swing. This means that if you have your crosshair very close to the edge of the wall and the enemy is doing a wide swing, you have to follow that enemy with your crosshair. And that's not optimal, so instead some players use prediction aim. Instead of putting your crosshair very close to the wall, you aim a little bit to the left of it, so that if the enemy is going for a wide swing, they will walk into your crosshair and you don't have to make an adjustment. Head level assist. As we all know, keeping your crosshair on head level is a very good thing to do. It's easier to get those one-tappies. Not sure where the head of the enemy could be? No worries, on a lot of Valorant maps you have head level assists. A lot of walls on Valorant are a little bit split, like this wall on Bind, and usually a little bit underneath the split is the head level of the enemy. These head level assist spots are mainly in the older maps, not really in the newer maps, but it's still a tricky that you can use if you're a beginner player. Tap fire. If an enemy is on long range, you can shoot one bullet at a time to make sure that your bullets go where you're aiming at. Burst fire. Instead of shooting one bullet at a time, you shoot 3 to 5 bullets at a time. This way your bullets will be a little less accurate, but if you slowly go down with your mouse, you know, a little spray control, burst fire should be better than tap firing. Spraying. What? Who saw this one coming? This is when you just hold down your left mouse button, or your R2, I think, for console players, I have no idea, and then spray and pray on the enemies. Keep in mind, if you go for spray kills, make sure that you use spray control. And then the last mechanic about aiming, perfect sensitivity. Sadly, there's no such thing as perfect sensitivity, but if you really struggle to find the sensitivity that you like, what you gotta do is make one smooth motion with your mouse and make sure that that motion is exactly a 180 in game. Keep in mind, this is just the starting point for your sensitivity. From here you can play some death matches and adjust your sensitivity up or down till you find the perfect one for you. And those were all the mechanics in the aim category. It's time to go to the second category, and these are all about peeking. Okay, the first type of peek is the wide swing, probably the most common type of peek. It's when you basically run around the corner and shoot when you see an enemy. This type of peek has its advantages because the enemy needs to adjust his crosshair. However, this is not the reason why most players use this peek, but it's because this peek is just very simple to do, especially for those people that are impatient and want to peek as fast as possible. Slow peek. If you want to go for a slow peek, you're slowly peeking around the corner, checking every angle an enemy could be standing, so there's less chance that you peek into multiple enemies. This type of peek is especially strong with an operator because of its insta-kill with the body shot potential. Jiggle peek. It's when you jiggle your booty. Wiggle, 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 wiggle. Nah, just kidding, not your booty. But it's when you jiggle around the corner left and right and go for a few shots here and there. This one is used when you know where an enemy is, so you pre-aim on that spot and hope that you can get a kill without an enemy being able to shoot on you back. Jump peek. Looks a lot like a jiggle peek, but then instead of jiggling, you jump while peeking around the corner. Of course, this tactic is not used to get a kill, but it's purely to get info, because if you do a jump peek, it's even harder for the enemies to shoot on you. Perfect on spots where you need to peek into multiple enemies, or if you're holding the spike in the post plant. Crouch peek. The name says it, it's when you peek and crouch immediately. I always thought that this was a type of peek that only iron and bronze players are using, but even in diamond elo some people are crouch peeking, and the stupid thing is that it even works, because with the crouch peek there's a chance that you will dodge the enemy's bullets if they aim on your head. Well, what? What? Was weiter? I got so tilted that I started speaking German. I'm not even from Germany, by the way. Double swing. This is when you peek together with a teammate. Probably the best type of peek that you can do. It's hard for the enemy to focus on 2 players at once. However, the problem, most teammates like to bait you. Re-peeking. This is when you peek something, you go back and then you decide, you know what, I have confidence in myself and I will peek again. I would say more often than not, re-peeking is not a good thing to do. However, if you combine re-peeking with an ability like a flash, then suddenly re-peeks can become very strong. The meme peek. There are tons tons and tons of different meme peaks in Valorant, and I can't go over them all, but here are a few examples. The most famous one is the Ferrari peak. This is when you walk very far out, hoping that the enemies are bad in tracking your body, and then shoot from the other side. But we also got the gritty swing, the Mr. Krabs swing, the finger peak, and so on and so on. These are the only type of peaks that I wouldn't really recommend in your competitive games. And that concludes the peaks. Now it's time to move on to the category all about movement mechanics. Phew, MrLowlander is on fire with those bad jokes.
Did you like the joke, Bobber? I think she did.
Sorry, we're getting a little off track. Movement mechanics. Let's start with bunny hops. This is when the player jumps on the right timing to get a little extra speed. In other games like Counter-Strike, bunny hops are very valuable, but in Valorant you don't get a lot of extra speed, so it's mostly a thing that players do when they are bored. Noise circle. When you're walking, you can see a small circle on the minimap around your icon, and this is the range from where the enemies can hear you. This isn't the only use case of the noise circle. Some players also use it for lineups like a Phoenix Molly, and it's roughly the same as the spike explosion range. Counter-Strafing. This is a mechanic that a lot of people think is not very valuable in Valorant, but it actually is. Take a look at this clip. I'm peeking the enemy, but the first bullet doesn't land anywhere close to where my crosshair is. The reason I didn't counter-strafe in this round. What is counter-strafing? If you peek something and you walk to the left, for example, but then you suddenly see an enemy and you want to shoot, you need to quickly press D and then shoot. If you do this, your first bullet will always be accurate, while if you not do it, your first bullet isn't always accurate. Running with knife. This might be the first thing you learn when you play Valorant, but I still wanted to mention it. You run faster with your knife in your hand than with a gun in your hand. Perfect for rotating. Air strafing. When you jump and you want to go to the left, you get a little more speed if you look to the left while pressing A. Or look to the right when pressing D, of course. This is called an air strafe. Why is this mechanic useful? Well, you will get a little further, and if you play an agent like Race, air strafing is essential to get those good satchel jumps. Crouch jump. If you want to jump onto something but it's a little too high, you can quickly crouch and release crouch mid-air, and then you will get a little more height. This mechanic is mainly used to get onto pixel spots, but you can use it anywhere to make hard jumps a little easier, like jumping on the generator on Ascent. Tapping/sticking. If the enemies have planted the spike and you want to defuse it, you can tap the spike. This is when you defuse for like 1 second and then search for the enemy, or you can stick the spike. This is when you keep defusing. And those were the movement mechanics. Let's move on to positioning now. It's funnier the second time, I swear. Okay, sorry. Thank you that you're still watching, by the way. Let's start this category with angle advantage. The further you stand away from the wall where you're peeking from, the less visible you are from the enemy's perspective. Huh? How does this work? Well, if you take a look at the background, in this example I am able to see the arm of Killjoy, but Killjoy isn't able to see me. This is because I'm standing further away from my wall than Killjoy is standing from her wall. I also made a beautiful drawing of this phenomenon. I hope it makes a little sense. Next one, the vault setup. If a teammate says play the vault, he means that you should spread out over the map so that every spot on the map is checked. A very strong strategy to make sure that no enemy is lurking. Lurk/flank. This is when you try to get behind the enemies through sneaky pathing. If your whole team is pushing B, you can push A sneaky peeky like and hope to get behind the enemies without them noticing you. Cutting off the rotation. With this positioning tactic, you get into a spot where you think the enemies are gonna walk past when they are rotating and then hope that they don't expect you sitting there. It's almost the same as flanking, only then you stop on a certain spot and instead of walking into the back of the enemies, you hope that the enemies are walking into your crosshair. Holding the flank. When you hold the flank, you let your teammates push side, but you are keeping a small eye on the back of you, just in case an enemy is pushing behind you. Usually this is done with an ability like a Cypher Tripwire or a Killjoy Sentry, but those abilities aren't always available, so when they're not, the player will take this task on him. Crossfire. When you play a crossfire, you hold one angle with 2 players. Now if an enemy is peeking, they peek into 2 of your teammates, and this makes it very hard for the enemy to get a kill. Ability hold. This strategy is mainly used for sentinel agents. If you have an ability that either spots or holds enemies off, abilities like a Sage Ball, a Cypher Tripwire or a Killjoy alarm bot, you can place it on a spot and then completely turn your back against it. This tactic is for example very good on bind showers. If you place a deep ability there, you can just hold a side without looking behind you. Red spots. I don't think I need to explain this one. We all got killed by them at least once, and maybe even you are one of those sneaky red players. Off angles. This is when you hold something but from a spot where not a lot of people are standing. Usually when you play from an off angle, you stand all the way in the open, so this strategy is actually only used by agents that have an escape ability. Think about a jet dash or a chamber teleport. And these, my friends, were all the player mechanics that you have to know when you hop into a competitive game. At least I think these were all the player mechanics. If you think I missed something, let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you like this video, and for more content you can click on the video on the top left. Thank you for watching and peace.